Okay, I think we've made our point here. So first of all, I guess maybe props to you if you recognize that as the opening theme music to Starsky and Hutch, which is a TV show many years ago. It was based on the work of the Norwegian playwright Henrik Ibsen. I'm not sure how much that was ever conveyed to people. But anyway, this morning I was doing pledge breaks early in the morning. And when you're doing pledge breaks on Morning Edition, one of the benefits is that when you're not interrupting Morning Edition, you can listen to Morning Edition. And the DJ and producer known as RJD2 was being interviewed by A. Martinez about his latest album called Visions Out of Limelight. And he talked about old TV songs, old TV theme songs, and how did you hear that little kind of ending on the beat there? How they inspired him. And how they were, and he mentioned Starsky and Hutch as being maybe a slightly more complicated theme song than people give it credit for being. And I thought, really? So I need to go home and sit with the love theme from Starsky and Hutch. And then I thought, well, why would I just do that myself? Why wouldn't I share it with the rest of you? Because it is Ask or Tell Me Anything Day. And Ask or Tell Me Anything is a concept in which we do not book guests. In this case, we barely told you we were doing Ask or Tell Me Anything. We do not book guests. We do not pick topics in advance. And we wait to see if anybody calls 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. And if nobody calls, a Beckett play ensues. It'll be like Krapp's last tape. That's just one person talking, I think, right? It's been a while. I'm out of touch with Sam. But yes, 888-720-9677. I have many things that I want to say. One thing I want to just convey to you, because I don't think necessarily that people fully understand this, but I'm sitting in a different studio now from where I did the show for the first 14 years of the show, or 13 and change, or I don't know. I'm not good at math, but they've designed these new studios where eventually we will be doing things that turn into pictures on TV screens. You can see I didn't go to a lot of the meetings about this. No, I don't know. We're going to stream it and stuff like that, stream the show. So, I mean, I'm in what is effectively a TV studio on a TV set with TV cameras pointing at me and TV lights, up on the ceiling or thereabouts. It's like every day I go in here and I do a TV show that never appears anywhere, It's just, I'm just doing a radio show that looks like a TV show, or I don't know. It's very disorienting. But anyway, enough about me. Oh, I want to just say one other thing, because people are calling in and we'll get them all set up. We'll get you ready to go on the air. And while that's happening, my former producer, Bobby Sherwood, has just texted me to say that his dad loved Hill Street Blues, his late dad, and he knew it right away what it was. All right. So I just, every once in a while, Donald Trump, in the tradition of stopped clocks, he really comes up with a very pithy, good idea. And here is the good idea. This is from one of his fundraising emails. And what I can't convey to you is how much of this is in capital letters, because he likes to type in capital letters, because he thinks it makes what he types seem more important. It says, Biden's Soviet tactics don't scare me! Exclamation point. That was in all caps. I'd go to jail, all caps, again and again if that's what it took to save America. Well, I think we should take him up on his offer. I mean, he's absolutely right. That might be what it takes to save America, if he would just go to jail again and again. Or just once, but for an again and again length of time. So it just, I'm glad that he's on the same page with a lot of the rest of us, and that he's making this wonderful offer. And I absolutely think we should okay, this will be good. We should take him up on that. All right, time to start talking to the folks. And when I say folks right now, I mean Troy in Naugatuck.
How you doing, Troy?
I'm doing okay, Troy. How are you?
Oh, I've always wanted to call you here, the second best voice in Connecticut other than mine. But, I'm doing good.
All right. I'm very excited to be talking to the best voice in Connecticut. So, we're both excited.
There you go. I just wanted, because I know you're a comic book fan like I am, I wanted your thoughts on what I think is going to be a game changer on Deadpool and Wolverine coming out soon.
I don't see how. I mean, I'll be interested to hear your rationale for this. I mean, I it's funny that you should ask this because recently I've done two things. One of them is I read the Chris Hemsworth profile on the cover of Vanity Fair, which was very interesting. And one of the things that was very interesting is like they go to each other's weddings and stuff. I mean, the Avengers go to each other's weddings, and poor Jeremy Renner, who was hurt even worse than we knew. He just gave. I recommend the article he gave to the L.A. Times. I'm not really sure I'm allowed to describe what he says. He has a very earthy sense of humor, even about his injuries. But so so that's number one. Number two was. There was one day last week where I just had kind of a rough day. I can't remember everything that had gone wrong, but I just wasn't really in the mood to tackle anything new or whatever. And so I watched, let's see, what did I watch? I watched a good portion of Iron Man 2, and then this is what's so great about Disney Plus. And then I watched the whole first Avengers movie, which I've watched many times. And that was
great movie.
Yeah, and actually, I also recently watched The Age of Ultron, which I think is an underrated movie. This time when I watched it, I thought there's a lot going on here. So I'm not somebody who says. I'm not Scorsese, I'm not saying Marvel culture ruined movies and yada yada. I mean, it's its own thing, and on the basis of it being its own thing, I think it works pretty well. Yes, it ties up Mark Ruffalo and Scarlett Johansson and a whole bunch of other people doing stuff that, maybe there's some other stuff that they could do that would be more interesting. Although I think they're going to have some free time now. So I'm not casting asparagus on Marvel movies at all. But I also feel like it's kind of played out a little bit right now. And this feels like, what's the one where like George Burns and somebody else are going around, entertaining people? This will come back to me. I think it's a Neil Simon play. But anyway, this feels like a couple of old guys kind of at the end of vaudeville or something. It's kind of like, I wonder if we can do one more tour.
I'm 53. Now, come on, watch the old guy thing.
Yeah. No, I'm just sort of.
Hugh Jackman is like a year older than me.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. I don't mean that. I don't mean old in terms of. I just mean they've been around. They've been doing these characters for quite a while. There's a sense of maybe closure that's coming at least to this iteration of Marvel. And I'm thinking, does Kevin Feige think, okay, I bet I could just make this work one more time? Or I don't know. Why would you be excited by such a thing?
Well, because of Hugh Jackman. You've got to remember, Hugh Jackman was an unknown Australian actor who went to a cattle call. He's about 6'2". Wolverine's supposed to be about, 5'8". So he totally changed everyone's perception on this character. Deadpool was based, I'm going to say, if you weren't in the comic, no, you didn't know who Deadpool was until Ryan Reynolds came. So you're bringing together two incredible icons in a Marvel movie at a time where, if you saw the trailer, when they said Marvel needs a Marvel Jesus, and it's going to be Deadpool to resurrect that genre. And I get what you're saying. It may be closure, but it might be a new opening as far as this multiverse thing goes.
All right. I mean, look, I'm certainly not going to dig in my heels and argue with you about it. I hope it's a fun movie. I hope everybody has a really good time watching it. It feels a little desperate.
A couple million on pre-sales, so I mean, I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, good on you, I say. I will watch it at some point. I don't know that I'll necessarily make it to the movie theater to watch it, but you never know. I could do something like that. I'm going right down the line here. We've got Catherine in New London. Hi, Catherine. What would you like to talk about? Oh, I did something wrong. Yes, there you are. You're there. Okay, you were there. Okay, good.
I'm here?
Yeah.
Good. We spoke last on January 22nd about Roe v. Wade, so I'm going to talk today, if I may, a little bit for Juneteenth. The federal holiday is tomorrow.
Yep.
And I want to recommend to people, if they don't know the history of it, to look up the historian Jamal Tisby, and he's on Substack and a lot of other places, and he gives you a fabulous background on Juneteenth.
Yeah, I should say that, and plaudits to our CEO, Mark Contreras. One of the things he did pretty early on in his tenure here is make Juneteenth a company holiday. So we do observe it. We take it seriously. And I'm glad you're talking about it.
Okay. And the other comment that I started saying was NATO. I want people to realize how important it is that America stays in NATO. And you know what will happen if a certain orange person became president. So I'm going to leave it at that because last time I ended up cursing on the radio, unfortunately. And today I'm being very calm.
Yes, you're fine.
Heat, I think.
You're just fine. Yes, we encourage everyone to remain calm because of the heat. All right, all of that's good. I want to elaborate on that. There's a lot of people waiting to get on the air, so why don't we just do that kind of thing? So Chris, I did the wrong thing. Did I right? No, I got Chris. Chris, you're on the air.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
So I live in New Haven, and I actually feel like Yale University is not really as much of a benefit to the city as I think the average outsider or someone who lives there would think, because everything in New Haven kind of just dies down once the summer starts. Like food restaurants start closing earlier. A lot of restaurants start selling like less food. Coffee shops close earlier. It becomes kind of like a ghost town, the whole city in a way, because everything is kind of set up to serve Yale students. And if you live there and you're not a Yale student, it kind of feels like you're waiting for the Yale students to come back so that you can have access to all the things that are supposed to be there.
Okay, no, I mean, granting that I have, I'm not pure and I'm not fair and balanced about this. I'm a graduate of Yale and I've taught at Yale. I think I'm probably all done teaching at Yale, but I don't know. It sounds like you're making the opposite argument. I mean, that everything that you like about New Haven, all the things that you enjoy so much about New Haven, are closed when the Yale students aren't there in full force. That kind of suggests that the stuff that you like exists because Yale is there in order to drive business initiatives and to create a market for a lot of the stuff that you like. I mean, if Yale went away permanently, then none of that stuff would be there. I mean, at least I'm granting your premise here. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I feel like if New Haven is supposed to be a city, like a city shouldn't exist just for the purpose of one group of people. It should be a diverse area where a lot of different people are coming together. And the city should be serving a diverse community, not just a group of exclusive students.
See, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. Although, I mean, I think the other way to think about this is what would there be if that group of students wasn't there? And I will tell you, I graduated from Yale in 1976, and New Haven was nothing, and nobody considered staying in New Haven 1 minute longer than they had to. Nobody considered living in New Haven after they graduated. There were almost no restaurants of any consequence whatsoever, and what culture existed in New Haven really tended to exist on the Yale campus. And I think a whole bunch of leaders, Joel Chavone, certainly John DeStefano, and people within the Yale community, they decided to make this a city where, among other things, not that this is the be-all and end-all, but that people who graduated from Yale would maybe want to stay there and start their lives. And the city now is better in a way that makes the old city almost unrecognizable. I mean, what you just see walking around East Rock and stuff like that on a warm spring night, just none of that was there. And I think what it really takes is civic leadership and Yale leadership working hand in hand. And I think if you take either one of them away, you just don't have the same city. And yeah, it's too bad because you're right. A lot of these students come from very privileged backgrounds, and most of them are going to go on to have, rather advantageous beginnings to their professional lives and stuff like that. But I just don't. I saw what New Haven looked like in 1976, and I know the kind of work it took, both from within the Yale community and the community that surrounds Yale, to act in partnership, to have the kind of vibrant city that you really like right now. And I don't.
But
go ahead.
But weren't most cities in the 70s not doing well? Like New Haven, Hartford, New York. No city in the 70s was a city people wanted to be in. And even now, a lot of the kids that graduate from Yale, they're not staying in New Haven. They're already leaving. Nobody's really staying anyway. So like it's not really. The benefit is still not really there.
Yeah, no, but I do see, for example, one thing that New Haven has become. First of all, more people stay there upon graduating from Yale or circle back there after 2 or 3 years than ever did before. And I don't think you can imagine. Yes, I was very. I mean, this is really true. Hartford had a better restaurant scene in the 1970s than New Haven did. I mean, there just wasn't very much there. I don't think you could possibly grasp, how barren and unappealing it was. And then I think another thing that's happened for New Haven is that it's become a retirement destination. I know people who have, sold houses and elsewhere and come and bought, one floor of a three-family or three-level house in East Rock or something, and are having their retirements there because the cultural scene, some of which is independent of Yale, some of which is an outgrowth of Yale, and some of which is just sort of within Yale itself, is attractive to them. The walkability is attractive to them. I think you'd have a hard time recreating that without Yale. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I understand it, and I sympathize with the sentiment of it, but I don't know. I don't think you get the same New Haven. You would have to figure out something else entirely in order to, to replace what was there. All right. So what do we need to do here? Well, first of all, I have no idea why, but the phone system is not working. So let's take a break. And we will come back. Our number is 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR.
Who can turn the world on with a smile? Who can take a nothing day and suddenly make it all seem worthwhile? Well, it's you, babe, and you should know it. With each glance and every little movement you show it. Love is all around, no need to waste it. You can have the time, why don't you take it? Look at what's happened to me. I can't believe it myself. Suddenly I'm up on top of the world. It should have been somebody else. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me.
That really is a good TV theme song. Come on now. That's the Greatest American Hero theme song. This is why it's dangerous to let me into the studios early in the morning. I start getting ideas. So, we're playing TV theme songs here on Ask or Tell Me Anything. The number is 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR. And what are we going to do here? Okay, so we're going to take some more calls here. We're having a little... So that looks like I could maybe take that call. I'm going to try taking this call, Mr. Dillon, and see what happens. Yeah, I think we got Tom here. Why we just have to figure out how to get all these other calls. So, Tom, welcome to the show.
Hi, how's it going, man?
It's, a little tricky, but it's fine.
Yeah, a lot of that going around.
Yeah.
Listen, I am curious to know what your take is with regard to the presidential debates. I've heard a couple of pundits now say that they think Trump's going to bail. And I just don't know if that's true or not. And I don't know. I'd just like to hear your general thoughts on the debates one way or the other.
Yeah, we did a recent episode about the whole thing, and if you have a podcast feed, you can go back and look at it. We had some pretty interesting people on. I'll say this. First of all, I think it's really interesting that the Commission for Presidential Debates is not involved in these debates. Both parties agreed to step back. Trump clearly thought for a while that debates are a tremendous advantage for him, that he should have debates with Biden that run as long as possible and have as many of them as possible because he thought that they would accrue to his advantage. You almost do get the sense that maybe there's some thinking within the campaign lately that's not so true. And I don't think, Donald Trump is a very good assessor of his own mental state anyway. I think one thing that is going to help Biden are the rules that involve shutting off the other person's mic. If you go back and look at some of the debates from 2020, Trump would just start talking over Biden. Biden would be trying to answer the question, and Trump would just kind of talk over him, and that eventually frustrated Biden to the point where he said, "Why don't you just shut up?" or something like that, or called him a clown and stuff like that. But that's not a good look for Biden. It makes it look like he's kind of joined Trump on Trump planet. So, certainly shutting off the mics and stuff like that, and that's very helpful, I think, to Biden. I also just think it's very difficult to predict. These guys both have some liabilities. Biden has good days and bad days. He has good hours within his normal days. Trump supposedly doesn't prep. Well, at least initially we were told he wasn't going to prep for the debates at all. And now he's actually doing policy conversations. I don't know what those would be like. So we might have lost him. But I don't know. It's the 27th. It's a week from tomorrow, right? I will be fascinated to see what happens. I don't think anybody can possibly predict what's gonna happen there. So, Mr. Reyes, why don't we get to some of the other people who are waiting to be on that I cannot seem to reach with my cursor? Let's try Adrienne from West Hartford.
Hi.
Hi, you're on the air.
Hi. I found on Twitter last night about the Poor People's March in Washington on the 29th of June.
Mm-hmm.
So I tweeted back some suggestions, naming some historians as speakers, including our David Blight of Yale,
mm-hmm.
who you may know, Colin. And I also suggested recruiting the Fonz, Henry Winkler, as some sort of MC, because he has so much crossover appeal and brings so much warmth to the table. But I also have some low-lying suggestions about poverty in general.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is that in areas where the homeless congregate, badly, really badly in San Francisco and places, but also other places, put up porta potties for the good of the poor people who have to struggle every day trying to figure out where to go to the bathroom, and for the public health.
Right. We should say, there's a meaningful distinction to be made between poor people and what are now called unhoused people. So there are poor people, and they live in poverty, but they have their own apartments. They have places to live. They have bathrooms in those places to live, that kind of stuff. It's really that you're talking about unhoused people. The only thing I would say about that is, and I think it's an admirable suggestion, it would be hard to come up, particularly when you look at the West Coast cities, that band of cities starting maybe at San Francisco and heading north through Portland, through Seattle, and actually up into Vancouver, where homeless people have come in very, very large numbers. It would be hard at this point to come up with a policy concept that nobody has tried. Including, better than average porta potties. And it is a really intractable problem. I think ultimately the answer is probably not porta potties, but enough shelter so that people who want it can go get it, can live, in some kind of shelter where they have access to the bathroom and perhaps considerably more. But yeah, anyway, thanks for your call. Go ahead.
I'm suggesting that these are only a small portion of the poor people,
mm-hmm.
and I have some other suggestions. And this would be kind of like a Band-Aid for now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, another one is it's become notorious that in poorer neighborhoods, they don't have they're food deserts. They don't have access to full-service grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
So my thought is that any national chains be required by Congress, law, to provide a full service, at least one full service grocery store in every single zip code.
Yeah, I don't think that's workable, and I think that would wind up in courts and stuff like that. But I will say, keep your eye on what's happened in Frog Hollow in Hartford, where they have started a small grocery store in the Billings Forge property, which is kind of income indexed. It is designed so that people are more likely to be charged what they can afford for groceries. I walked through it recently. It's a beautiful store. It's not a big store, and it's meant to serve a smaller neighborhood. And I think that's the other thing. I think it's going to be hard to get Stop and Shop and Big Y and all of those kinds of stores, ShopRite and stuff like that, to put big superstores in very poor neighborhoods. I think what's more likely are smaller operations where the overhead's a little bit lower, where it can be targeted, where in fact, instead of some big national purchasing strategy, the people who run the store can create a store that will work for the people in the neighborhood. Go take a look at that one. It's really good. And you're in West Hartford. It's not a long way. It's down on Broad Street, right next to Forge by Fire. It's an example of something really good that can be done. Now, I'm really sorry. We have to take a little break here. It's the last day of our pledge. But everybody, Victor, and I love to talk to you, Victor, and I love your topic, Mike and Richard. We would be very excited to talk to you just on the other side of this quick break. We'd also be very excited if you would be willing to, in fact, fund public radio. So think about doing that too. When the nice people ask you, do that.
Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about. Well, the names have all changed since you hung around, but those dreams have remained and they've turned around. Who'd have thought they'd lead ya? Who'd have thought they'd lead ya? Back here where we need ya. Back here where we need ya. Yeah, we tease him a lot, 'cause we got him on the spot. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
And we are back. It's Ask or Tell Me Anything. We're taking your phone calls, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Call in about anything you want to. But we have to thank our technical producer, the maestro, Dylan Reyes. The producer of this episode is Jonathan McPants. I also want to tell you that I think I mentioned earlier on the show that tomorrow is a company holiday here for Juneteenth. So the next time you hear me live will be on Thursday, but not at this time, but at night from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. We are going to do a late night radio show. I've always been very captivated by the romance of late night radio, if that's the right word. And, you know, I'm talking like Art Bell and George Noory and UFOs and, so we're going to do one of those shows, and we'll be live from 11 to 1. I hope some of you call in. It'll be the same phone number that you're using today. I hope your calls are a little, I don't know, spookier, scarier, weirder, different. I always feel like late night radio is a time when other things happen, things that don't happen on the daytime in the radio. And then I went on to try to have a career, basically, where I did late night radio during the day. I think my radio career could be summed up that way. But anyway, I hope you do that. We do have the great troubadour, Dr. Hugh Blumenfeld, will be joining us to sing some songs, and we have some interesting guests for you. But I think calls are going to be what the show's all about, so I hope you do it. All right. As promised, we're going to go right to Victor, Mike, and Richard, who are all waiting. Victor, you have the floor right now. Are you there, Victor?
Yes, sir.
There you are. All right. Speak right up. What's on your mind?
It's good to talk to a radio show host who's not a descendant of Rush Limbaugh.
Or a defendant.
Or a defendant of Rush Limbaugh. And speaking of defendants, I told your producer why I'm calling. I guess it was a couple of years after you left the big AM station that a fellow named John Rowland hosted in the afternoon.
Yep.
And I think Dick Blumenthal was running for senator for the first time. And I guess he figured his conservative audience, he asked, is anybody out there going to vote for Attorney General Blumenthal?
Mm-hmm.
And he said he used to take him around Rentschler Field when it opened and point to the corporate boxes and said, Dick, is there anybody out there you haven't sued? So anyway.
Yeah, well, of course, they probably had it coming.
Yeah. So I happened to be driving and pulled over, and I happened to be the last caller. And I said, yeah, I'm going to vote for Blumenthal. He said, why is that? He said, because he believes that the air should be free. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, I've had a slow leak in my tire lately, and you know how you go up to a gas station, tells you to put in these quarters.
Mm-hmm.
You made sure as Attorney General that you could go in, open the door, and ask the guy to put it on for free.
Yeah.
So I've had the air for free. And he ended the show saying, I don't know if that guy was kidding or not.
Well, I mean, there's so much that I could say about this, Victor, including the fact that, first of all, I think we lost that battle. I think the air is not free anymore. But I don't know. I wrote about this recently. A lot of things went on that show. We're talking about WTIC. I was the host, the afternoon drive host. I was let go in 2008 during the financial crisis. They tried getting along without a sort of personality type host for a while, and then they wound up hiring John Rowland. And during that time, as we now know, it was all testimony at trial, John Rowland had a secret deal to work on a political campaign, and he was being paid in a different way in order to conceal the fact. This is all going to sound kind of familiar, actually, but he was being paid in a different way to conceal that he was doing work on this political campaign. It was for a candidate named Lisa Wilson Foley. And what he would do on the radio is he would attack her opponents without having mentioned the fact that he was being paid by her or by her husband through somewhat surreptitious means. So not maybe really, a broadcasting interval that we can all be proud of. All right, let's go to Mike from Woodbury. Mike, you have the floor.
Hi, Colin. Oh, wait, are you talking about late night radio? You didn't mention the great Gene Shepherd.
Oh, Gene Shepherd, yeah. I mean, that's sort of a different kind of late night radio, but the same kind of thing in the sense that very free form, not the kind of, and diction wise, not the kind of beats that you associate with the way people talk on the radio. Those pauses and kind of sentences that would kind of slur all together, in this kind of very beautiful comic narrative. So, yeah, that's another great example.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to rant about something, but first I just have to mention that probably my favorite TV theme song is from the original Perry Mason show, which is called Park Avenue Beat, and by a guy named Frederick Steiner, who also wrote the theme music for the Rocky and Bullwinkle show.
So is Perry Mason da 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 da?
Yeah, that's great. Anyway, but what I want to rant about is the hearing with Dr. Anthony Fauci last week in front of the Senate Republicans. I mean, this guy has devoted his life to saving people's lives, basically. And I mean, it's to be expected that they would be mean and cruel and nasty, of course. But the total ignorance of how science works. Mm-hmm. I mean, well, first you said we should wear masks. Then you say we didn't need to wear a mask. Then and what was the 6 foot rule? Well, I mean, science evolves as more facts come in. This is a disease that came out of nowhere. We had no idea what it was. And to attack this guy for, making adjustments along the way is just idiotic. And now there is actually a certain amount of revisionism going on. The lockdowns, for example. I think Dr. Francis Collins, the former head of the NIH, said, well, we probably locked down, especially the schools, for way too long. Mm-hmm. And there's even, also maybe it did come from a lab. Originally they said that the lab theory was conspiracy theory, but even Fauci is saying, well, there's a chance. It's probably more likely that it was natural, but it could have come from a lab. But I mean, these guys, I mean, it was just outrageous the way they treated him. I thought it was horrible.
I just, read, there's an excerpt from Fauci's book in the current issue of The Atlantic. And it's rare that I had this reaction, but I read the entire excerpt and then I was mad that there wasn't more. I thought, no, I need another 2,000 words about all this because it was really fascinating, a lot of the stuff that he was saying. And he essentially says, and Mike, this is something that I really could talk about for a full hour quite easily. He essentially says that, he became aware that he was essentially dealing with two pandemics. One of them was the pandemic that's involved with the virus SARS-CoV-2. The other one was kind of a pandemic of misinformation and a pandemic of polarization, which leads to these completely separate kind of truth sets, that different people have. And of course, he's been folded into that problem now. As you say, he's been demonized and vilified. He should be, there should be and there will be statues of him all over the place, but there are also people who will want to deface those statues. But I do want to read to you the most alarming and kind of hilarious thing that he wrote that's in this excerpt. And he's talking about sort of the moment at which Mike Pence started to take over the White House COVID task house. And he said that this kind of thing happened a lot. It wasn't just Pence. But what they would do in these meetings is that they would talk about, their various ideas and things that might be done. And then it was almost obligatory that somebody would talk about how incredibly smart Trump was. He wasn't even in the room. But he actually said something like something to the effect that Mike Pence said something to the meeting where he said, we're all smart in this room, but we have to admit that the smartest person is the guy upstairs from us. For a brief second, because Mike Pence is very religious, I thought he was talking about God, the man upstairs. No, he's talking about Trump. He's saying like Trump is smarter than anybody, which, you realize the kind of mythology that needs to exist to sustain a situation like that, where you've got a guy talking about bleach and hydrochloroquine and you've got a guy who, I mean, one of the things Fauci says in this piece is it really seemed as though Trump was having a hard time understanding that this wasn't the same as the flu. At one point, when they were talking about vaccine development, he said, "Why can't we just use the flu vaccine?"
Also, he said, "Well, I don't need the vaccine because I've never had the flu." Not understanding that it's not a cure; it's to prevent the flu.
Right. In fact, not having had the flu makes you need the vaccine more. All right. Thanks for your call. And we will move on here. Unfortunately, this show is a little bit shorter than usual because we do have pledge. Let's go to Dina. Dina in Waterbury. Hi, you have the floor.
Hi. I was just calling to say how much I miss your music shows, the live ones, the semi-live ones. And so I have two ideas for your future shows. Mm-hmm. One is funk and its history, present and future in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And the second one is more shows about jazz, please.
Oh, yeah.
And how it's moving in Connecticut today.
Those are great ideas. I think you're talking about the shows we used to do at the Watkinson School, and particularly we, near the end, kind of came up with this little unit that consisted of Steve Metcalf, Jim Chapdelaine, and the amazing LaTanya Farrell. We did the Laura Nero show with her. We did the Elvis show with her. And we did do a live jazz show there with Steve Davis and Matt Natla Champlain and Jocelyn Pleasant and Henry Lugo. Yeah. I think I named everybody. But yeah, those are fun. We want to get back to doing them. Steve and I made a point of going to see one of LaTanya's shows recently, and she saw us and jumped off the stage in the middle of a song and ran over to us, which is very LaTanya. But yeah, no, I mean, I like doing those shows. I agree. We want to get this show back out on the road a little bit more, maybe do some more stuff at the Twain House, and go some other places. So thank you so much for your suggestions. Thank you for also just caring enough to make suggestions about what we do, and I think your suggestions are good ones. So
you're welcome. Yeah. I love the show. I love how up-to-date it is. I love the college show almost every Monday. It's great.
All
Thank
right.
you for all your hard work.
All right, thanks. I have a lot of hardworking people working hard with me, too. Here's Richard in Guilford. Hi, Richard. Oh, sorry. That's my fault. There we go. I'm still learning this phone system. Hi, Richard. You're on the air.
Hi, Colin. Good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm calling about the Ham Primus house that is sort of a political hot potato in Guilford.
Yep. We should say this is a house that, as I understand it, was at one point the home, or at least housed a freed person who was formerly enslaved.
I believe it's the first black homestead in the United States. And curiously enough, the town bought the house from a guy that was flying Trump flags for 4 years. Anyone who drove by on 77 would see him. And they bought the house from him in order to make a traffic circle or something that wasn't even needed. And he took the money and ran, because it was a lot more than the house was worth. It's just a shack now. He completely ran it down. It had been a nicer home before this guy inherited it. At any rate, they bought it from him, and then they discovered that this is what it is, that a part of the house, a small part of it, it represents this Reverend Ham, I believe, was this fellow who was granted this homestead right there. And now the town either wants to, they wish they hadn't ever dealt with it, I guess, but some people want to move the house so they could build their circle.
Is it still a circle? I thought there was like a dam or a drainage thing.
Yeah, there's a little spillway there, and there's Lake Quannapoug is right there. Right, it's at the mouth, or not the mouth, the other end of Lake Quannapoug.
The butt, I think, is what that's called actually in geology.
Yeah,
they refer to it as the butt of the lake.
Yeah. The butt of the lake. And the house, it sort of splits 77, and then it goes to this other road, Lake Drive. It sort of splits into 3 roads. But at any rate, now they don't know what to do. They wanted to move the house, but people are saying, you can't move the house. The foundation is most of what we're talking about. It has to stay there. It has to stay. And then oddly enough, and I don't know why this is, and I thought maybe you could help me with this, it seems like Trump people are in favor of preserving the house. I don't know why, but I have no clue. I don't know anything about it. I live like a block away from it, and nothing has happened since the town bought the house. And I figured maybe you know something about it.
I don't.
And
I agree. It's a little baffling. I mean, that doesn't really sort of track that well, that the MAGA people would be the one who'd want to preserve the history of slavery in America.
If you go a little further up on 77, there's an old red barn that says Trump 2024, and then underneath it says Stop Racism, Save the Ham Primus House.
Well, maybe that's could be messages for two different people. Maybe the first one's...
it's the same guy.
All right.
It's the same.
I am baffled. But you know what? People are weird. It's, you can never predict people up and down the line. All right, we have to stop. I'm very sorry for that. But people are going to come on. Very nice people are going to come on and in a very sweet way ask you to support crazy endeavors like this. Shows where there are no topics or guests and barely even a host. And late night shows like the ones we're doing on Thursday. So support the show, support the station, support the company, the nonprofit CT Public, when people come on and ask you to do so.
The number you have reached has been disconnected.